बहुत ही प्रोमिनेंट हमारे लाल सिंह भाटिया जो है, उनके जो प्रपुत्र है, ग्रेट ग्रैंडसन, हम उनसे कुछ बातें सुनना पसंद करेंगे. सो मैं मंच पर उनको आमंत्रित करती हूँ. रवि भाटिया जी, प्लीज.
Jai Hind. I'm the great grandson of Mr. Lal Singh Pandhi. Lal Singh Bhatia. Pandhi was his pen name. He was an independence fighter and born in Gujranwala. So that's his photograph right there. And I thank Mr. Krishna as well, the counselor. He has been instrumental, and he worked very hard to find the roots of INA ever since he's been here. So my great grandfather was a freedom fighter and a writer, a prolific writer who used to write very fiery anti-British articles in various newspapers and other publications. And academia, he used to teach in the Punjab University based in Lahore as well. After the Rowlatt Act, which was in 1919, there were a lot of protests which culminated in the Jallianwala Bagh incident, which all of us are aware of. And a warrant was issued for my great-grandfather, Mr. Lal Singh Pandhi, at that time. And following which he escaped. He came to Thailand and settled down here for good. And continued writing, continued supporting the freedom movement. And that is the time, it's after that Netaji came into prominence. Gadar movement, a lot of freedom fighters which are based within India, outside of India. But what I'd like to highlight here is that there was a lot of activities going on outside of India as well. In the US, Germany, Italy, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia. In Thailand, once we set up the business here, my great-grandfather continued his writing activities. He continued the contributions, and then once Netaji came into prominence, he himself with INA and started supporting the International Army full force with a lot of funding and with his writing as well. The funny thing is, I never realized, as a kid, I never really, we didn't know so much history since we were born in Thailand. लेकिन एक चीज़ है, just switch to Hindi because this thing sounds best in Hindi. एक चीज़ है जो हमेशा से हम सुनते आए हैं हमारे घर में कि BBC का मतलब है बेहुदा बकवास कॉरपोरेशन. This was something which was coined by Pandhi, my great-grandfather, and it was something which is common in one of the speeches that Netaji he made as well, where he used to call it in an English version, since it was for an English audience, that it's bluff and bolster corporation. So there's a lot of common things which we have been hearing as kids, and which now I end up hearing, reading when I study the history of Netaji as well, of INA, that Jai Hind being one of them, and the very famous song of INA, that Kadam Kadam Badhaye Ja, Khushi ke Geet Gaye Ja, Ye Zindagi Hai Qaum Ki, Tu Qaum Pe Lutaye Ja. And we all know of Tum Mujhe Khoon Do, Main Tumhe Azadi Dunga. Since he's an unsung hero, now we are talking a lot about unsung heroes. Freedom, the struggle of freedom was not won by one individual. It wasn't one leader. One leader motivated 1,000 or 1,000,000 other people. And there were a lot of sacrifices which were made by each and every individual who were involved in that. I think there was a lot of sacrifices made by Pandhi as well, my great-grandfather too, because I know till the end, his aim was always to go back to mulk, which he used to call India as. That even people of my generation, they don't really know that much how deeply involved we have been with the Indian freedom fight and freedom struggle, and how much India has struggled for that matter. So I'm trying my best to maintain that linkage, because it is a great struggle, great history, which it's a moral responsibility to pass on to the next generation. It will be forgotten. It's great. I really truly applaud this Parakram Diwas initiative which has been done. It's a little bit late, but you know what they say, der I, better late than never, der I drustai. So it will help the current generation and the future generation to truly understand the kind of sacrifices which have been made by so many people. Because that's what Indian National Army was. It was a collection of the prisoners of war, which were basically Indians fighting for the British. There is an argument against Netaji. Unfortunately, a lot of people argue that he was very aligned towards the Axis, meaning Germany, Italy, and Japan. My simple question to that is, what did Germany do to hurt India specifically? Nothing. So what did India have against them? Nothing. What did Italy do? None. Can we think of anything else that Japanese did to hurt India during those days? No. So why should and Netaji realized that no, we are friends, and this is what we should use. On the contrary, what did the British do to hurt India? Plenty. दुश्मन का दुश्मन दोस्त होता है. That's the simple logic which was played out by Netaji, and he went on to make an alliance with that. He met Hitler. Said, you have all these prisoners of war, because he had the prisoners of war who were the so-called the British army, but they were actually Indians who were fighting for the British. Says, why don't you give me those? We have a common enemy, and let's just defeat them. And maybe that's how the alliance was formed. 3,000 prisoners of war he got from there. And then furthermore, I think he got thousands more from, similarly from Japan. Made a collection of that, and that's how the Indian National Army, the first batch, the big sizable lot of Indian National Army came up. National Army's victory in the northeast, in Manipur. And before that, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Andaman and Nicobar Islands as well was won by INA already. There were already two sizable parts, major parts of India, which had already come under the control of INA. Unfortunately, the Japanese started losing in World War II. And even now, even today, Arunachal Pradesh people still greet each other with Jai Hind. Netaji's influences is still very strong in the northeastern part of India. So I'm sure there are plenty more families who were involved in the freedom struggle with INA and otherwise as well, who are not really asking for much. The descendants are now probably not even aware that what had happened. But if you can find the relics or the writings, give some sort of recognition to those families just for them, it's actually going to be a great. This is already a great move for Parakram Diwas. I'm sure that will be the logical move going forward as well. With that, I think I'll just leave that with you. Thank you.
Mr. मिस्टर रवि भाटिया, प्लीज आप अगर मंच पे जाए तो।
क्या दे रहे हैं आपको? ये लाल सिंह पांडी जी की एक फ़ोटो है और उनके बारे में लिखा हुआ है जो कुछ भी हम लोग लाल सिंह पांडी जी की फ़ोटो है और उनके बारे में जो कुछ भी पता चल पाया है वो लिखा हुआ है। हम ये जानते हैं कि कोई भी बहुत कम लिखित इतिहास बचा है, क्योंकि जब मई 1945 में सरेंडर करना पड़ा आज़ाद हिंद फौज को, तो नेताजी ने अपने सारे समर्थकों को मलेशिया में, थाईलैंड में, सिंगापुर में, बर्मा में ये कहा था कि आप सारे रिकॉर्ड डिस्ट्रॉय कर दीजिए। तो कुछ भी लिखित बचा नहीं था, लेकिन फिर भी कई प्रमाण हैं जो बताते हैं कि जो परिवार की जो इन लोगों की यादें हैं वो सही हैं और उसको कंफर्म करने वाली चीज़ें हैं। तो वो कुछ इसमें लिखा हुआ है। और लाल सिंह पांडी जी ने आखिर तक अपना इंडियन पासपोर्ट बनाए रखा था, उस पासपोर्ट की कॉपी भी है इसमें। तो एक संस्कृत में कहावत है कि आपसे जो मिला वो आप ही को लौटा रहे हैं। तो इन्हीं से ये मिला है और इन्हीं को हम दे रहे हैं। थैंक यू।